Morning, sir.
Should be estimates. And I
Hi,
don't consider myself lower, but
on behalf of IDP IELTS, would like to welcome you all to the training session today. So, with us, we have today our expert, Miss Neha. So, she'll be taking you through all the 4 modules for the IELTS. And if you have any queries, we have kept the chat box open for all. So, you can chat your queries, your questions, and we'll try to address
yeah.
accordingly, right? So, and I request everyone to please keep yourself on mute and hi Neha, can you hear me?
Hi, good morning, Aman. Yes, I can
Good
hear you.
morning. So over to you.
Thank you so
you.
much. So, hi, good morning, and a very warm welcome to today's masterclass.
Good
I
morning.
can see a big, excited crowd. So, my name is Neha. I will be your host and your trainer for the next 1.5 hours. Just setting the ground rules here. Request everyone to keep their mics on mute, please, so that you can hear me. And say you need to talk to me, you have any questions, any concerns, feel free to use the chat box. So I have that open here. I can see your comments or questions coming in. So feel free to use it. Okay. Okay, with that, let's get started. Okay, so we are looking at a test that opens the door around the world. And before we start talking about the world, I'd love to know, where are you logging from? So I can see Ranjit saying a good morning. Good morning, Ranjit. And if you could let me know, where are you logging in from, that would be good to know. So if you could just type in a good morning, and where are you logging in from? Okay.
Ma'am, your voice is slow. Ma'am, your voice is slow.
So like,
Please
news,
speak
I could
loudly.
hear you. Okay, but can you put that in the chat box instead of opening your mic? Can we have everyone on
Okay,
mute?
okay, okay.
Okay. Can I request anyone from IDP, like my co-hosts, if we can just check the
Yes,
settings and
Neha, I have done it. Okay.
okay. Thank you so much. Okay, lovely. I can see the answers pouring in. I have people from Nepal, Karnal, Bangalore, Delhi. So it's kind of east, north, south, west, the entire India and our neighboring countries. So very warm welcome to all of you. And talking about IELTS, irrespective of which state you belong to, and for that matter, which country you belong to, this is the test that would help you on your journey to navigate the globe. Okay. It is a test which will assess the ability, the English language ability, both in for your studies and for your work. And it opens doors for all the English speaking countries. Okay. So be it the US, be it the UK, Australia, Canada, you name it. And this test is acceptable. Over 12,000 institutes accept this test as entry to education So be it universities, colleges, or be it for immigration purpose. Okay. No, unfortunately, we will not have the recorded link shared, but you can be here and you can ask your questions here, right? So yes, the session is about us, and I will take you through the journey. If you're familiar with the test, you would know that unlike most tests which give you a marks or say percentage, this particular test grades your language skill in bands, right? Starting from 0 to 9. 0, very simply, if you did not attempt the test. But having said that, most of the universities, institutes, colleges would be happy with a band score of, say, around 6 to 7, right? That's what most of the universities and colleges need. And if you're here today, if you can hear me, if you can understand me, and you can respond, as I can see you're responding in the chat box. That means we are already using the language and we are somewhere here, maybe limited users, maybe modest users. Some might even be competent and good users. So you're already there on your journey, whereas, and today we'll just navigate and see what the sections are, okay, what kind of questions you'd come across, and we will also look at some tips, some strategies which will help you clear the test with a good score. Okay, so we'll be walking through all the modules, and we'll be catering to both the set of students who are planning to take the test. So what do we mean by both the sets? You might be aware that IELTS is conducted in two formats. One is the academic version, which is for the students. Okay, by students, I mean anyone who's planning to go abroad for their studies. Could be a diploma program, could be a graduation program, master's, but you need to take the academic version. And then there is the general training, which is mostly for the immigration purpose. So either of you can benefit from today's session. Having said that, can I have a quick poll in the chat box? And if you could let me know which test are you planning to take? Are you looking at the academic version? Are you planning to go abroad and study? Or are you planning for immigration? So you can write AC for academic and GT for general. So I just know what kind of crowd I'm sitting with. I can see someone writing PTE. We are not doing PTE today. This is an IELTS Masterclass. Okay. So nice, wonderful. We have a good mix of academic and general aspirants. Lovely. And I'll answer questions for both. So don't feel left out or don't feel that this is only for one set of people. Okay. So Q&A, we will have it after modules, right? So say I'll be starting with listening, and we will go through the entire listening module, what it is, the type of questions, maybe some practice. And after I'm done with that, I will ask, do you have any questions, anything else left? And you can ask your questions for that particular set, okay, since we're doing listening. So I hope you understand. You'll not throw in a question for reading or writing. We'll do each module one by one. Okay. And towards the end, again, we'll have an open forum wherein you can put in any general questions if you have. Okay. So once I'm done, I won't be able to answer your questions post 12:30. So this is where you will find all your answers. Please make a note of this website. This is where all your all your questions pertaining to us will be answered. Okay. So now, before I get started with each module, I'd like to know how many of us are new to us and you have not attempted the test so far. This is your very first attempt. Can I have first? Okay, quite a few. Me. Okay, first. Sorry. Okay, lovely. I can see a show of hands as well as lot many people typing in first. So great. Let's look at some general strategies then. What should we do before we start our IELTS journey? Okay, what do you need to do in general? I'm not talking about each and every module. So first thing first, know your goal. What is your goal? And by goal, I mean if you're planning to uh, enroll yourself in a particular college, know what that particular college and also what that particular program. Okay, the programs also vary. Some programs are okay with an overall of 6.5, but there would be certain programs like nursing or related to medicine. They might ask for a 7 band at least. So make sure you know your goal. Do we know our goal? So the people who raise their hands or who have sent in a first in the chat box, do we know our goals? Lovely. If you do, awesome. If not, you can go for a counseling session, see what the expectations are, and get it. Okay. The other thing you should know is the structure of the test, what rules are applicable, the time duration, of course, and the test types. Okay. So Gauri is very clear. She needs an 8. Okay. So what is the structure of the test? So the structure, as I said, it would cover all the 4 skills related to any language. You would be appearing for a test for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And out of these, reading,
Neha, just I'm interrupting. I'm sorry, but I would request people not to raise your hands because we cannot allow you to unmute and say anything. So kindly put
yeah,
your queries in chat. And
great,
since we are getting so many queries in chat, I'm trying to reply. If it's getting taking some time, please, we request you to be a little patient. We'll get back to you, right?
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can see we are over 300 participants, and I'm sure everyone has a question. So just be patient. We'll get back to you towards the end. Before we go and sign out, you will get your answers. Just be a bit patient over here. Okay, coming back to the structure. So when you enroll for your exam, when you book your dates, as we call it, you would have your reading, writing, and listening test on the same day. And that is a single setting test, right? So you don't wait, you don't get up in between, you don't go out. It's you're sitting there for the entire duration. And speaking is a test which happens in an interview format, right? One-on-one. That could be on a different day or maybe on the same day, but at a different time. Okay, so that's a different game altogether. Okay, next, the rules. The rules, as I go through the sections, I'll reiterate them because each section has their own rules. Similarly, time-based and question type. Strategy. The next thing you should know is uh, your goal and where do you stand today. So what does that mean? Go and take a mock test today. Okay, I showed you the website and there are ample resources that's available with IDP. So take a full mock test, like right from the start to the finish and see where you stand. Okay, what is your current score? So for example, Gauri said her goal is 8. A good idea is to take the test, see where you stand. Say we just like, unfortunately, or maybe because we are without practice, we just landed on a 7 in reading. So at least I know what the gap is and what I need to do in order to fulfill that gap. Okay. Then start building your content. I know it's a test of English. It's like you get a question paper and then you answer it and it's end of story. There is no set syllabus. So definitely you need to get your own content for the test. What do I mean by that? So when you are writing, okay, or when you're speaking, you'll be talking about ideas, right? So you need to talk about, say, global population. Now, this is something that you might know, which is awesome. But if you're not very fond about following the current affairs, you need to start getting versed. Okay. So idea bank. Then there would some, you can call something like a vocab bank. That is where you put in all the new words you learn. And a good idea again is to structure them with the ideas and also linkers. How they work, where they work, we'll have a look. Okay. So I can see very specific questions also coming in that I will answer as we go to the modules. Okay. Now, just like any goal in life that you want to achieve, it is important for you to practice and have a very disciplined approach towards this goal as well. Okay. So chalk out a daily routine, get help if you want to, and practice every day. Practicing is not enough because you don't know what you're practicing. So make sure you get feedback as well. And whatever the feedback is, whoever your mentor is, he or she is trying to point out your mistakes. See what is the gap and start working on it. Okay. And as you practice, it shouldn't be like a vague practice. Okay, today I took up a reading exercise. I did a couple of questions, maybe a couple of passages, and then left it. Okay, tomorrow I'll do a bit of speaking. That's not how it works. Make a systematic approach and record your score so that you can see how you are progressing on your journey. And these tips, I would say it's not only for the first timers, those of us who are, taking a second attempt, maybe due to any reason XYZ, maybe you didn't have a good mentor, maybe you were not able to crack it, or maybe you were just nervous because of the exam, desired scores. This approach would be equally fruitful for you. See your previous test scores, see the gap, and practice every day and see if you're able to, make the transition in the journey and approach your score. And definitely a mindset. Again, as for any goal, have a learning mindset. I know English is a language we have been learning ever since our school days, right? Irrespective of which board you were in, irrespective of which medium of schooling you had. So even if it was, say, a Hindi medium school or a Marathi medium school, you still had English as one subject, right? And that would be like, okay, I know the language, but that's not what IELTS is about. You definitely need the language, but there's a lot that goes into assessing, okay, how you use the language. And that is how the entire test is designed. Very scientific, very logical approach. Unlike, not naming names, but yeah, unlike other tests, this is a very, very scientific and very, very logical test, which, every question out there is going to test a particular skill. So let's have a look as to what these sections are and what these questions are going to assess. So starting with listening, one of the easiest one. How many of us believe that this is one of the easiest one? Okay. That, yeah, I can crack it, like, or maybe you're practicing already and you feel that this is something I can do. Okay, great. Yeah. Many of you would agree that listening is comparatively easy out of the four that we have. Okay. Some might find it challenging. No denying that. So let's see what goes into this section and how we can get better scores. Okay. So first, as I said, we'll look at all the things that pertain to a module. Let's look at the time duration. Now, this is a 30-minute test followed by 10 minutes to answer to transfer your answers onto the answer sheet given. And then that's his PBT. So PBT is nothing but paper-based test. And again, there are two kinds of, or two methods how you could appear for the IELTS. One would be the paper-based method, and one is a computer-delivered IELTS. So how many of us are going for the computer-delivered IELTS? Can I have a me in the chat box or CBT in the chat box? CDRs. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you, Manish, Vaishnav, Gopika, for those of you who are going for a computer delivered test, you will not get those 10 minutes because you don't have to transfer the answer anywhere. Okay. You don't have any paper where you need to transfer the answer. Hence, no 10 minutes. You look at the question, you listen, and you mark your answers right there with the help of the keyboard or the mouse. Okay. And there are 4 parts to the test. By 4 parts, I mean there are 4 different sets of audios that would be played, and each part would have 10 questions. Okay. So why this listening module? Why are they judging if you can listen or not? So when we talk of listening, there are certain things that come into picture, even in our day-to-day lives. Let me give you an example, and then I want you to answer a question that I ask. So there are 2 scenarios I'll be talking about. The first scenario, okay? If, you're talking to a friend who's just come back from a vacation, and then she goes on to say what kind of horrible experience she had because this place that she booked, this resort, was not up to the mark. The service was very slow. The rooms weren't clean. And then she goes on to tell, more about her misery as to she complained that the manager did try to give her another room, but again, it was no good. Yeah, and to make things work like worse, maybe there was a power failure, and those things happen, and she's kind of just narrating her horrible story to you. Okay. And you're just responding. You're listening, right? You're first listening. She's your friend. So you're responding to her. So that's one incident. Now I'm talking about another scenario. Say your friend invites you, or rather a work colleague invites you to a party at their place. And you've not been to their place before. So this person calls you and he's telling you, I'd love it if you could make it to the party. And he starts giving you direction to his place. Okay. So he would tell you that, okay, first you need to take the metro and then get down at this particular station. And then it's a walking distance. But if you don't want to walk, you can just get an auto rickshaw. And then he gives you direction, like, take a right, or you'll see this, there's a tiny temple over there. From that, you can take a left. And then you're going to ask anyone there, or I'll just share the location. Okay, something of that sort. Now, my question to you is, the way you were listening and responding to these scenarios, was it the same? These 2 scenarios, the way you listened to them, was it the same? When we were talking about, or rather when your friend was talking about the horrible vacation she had, what did you take note of? Did you take note of anything? Not exactly. Okay. But when the other friend was inviting to your party, were you taking notes? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you're making sure that you get the correct metro station, you know where to drop down, drop off, and what to take next, right? So these are 2 approaches. But having said that, you didn't kind of very well make notes when your friend was talking about the hotel she stayed at or the resort she stayed at. But did you catch the name? Like, you'll make sure you don't stay there during the next vacation, right? Did you make any notes? Or it was like, no, you didn't care for anything. You did make a mental note of, okay, I will not stay there. So what kind of an approach was that? So basically, these are two approaches to listening. One is known as the top-down model, one is known as the bottom-up model. And when it comes to listening, in the IELTS listening, you will have to use a mix of these skills. Okay. So sometimes you'll have to understand the main idea. In the first conversation, I got the main idea that this particular place is not a good place to stay, and I would definitely not book it for my vacation. Okay. Then you could be listening for specific or factual details. Like when we are talking to your friend who's inviting you to the party, making sure we get the party date correct, the time correct, the location correct. Okay. But sometimes we might also be required to listen and recognize and understand the opinion and attitude of the speaker, as well as follow the development of that entire conversation and see how it turns out. And there would be questions related to it. Okay, so these are the skills which are expected from you. And these skills would be tested through different sets of audios. Okay, so if you're doing a yes, someone asked, would you be getting headphones? Yes, you would be getting a headphone. Okay, no, it's not a common loudspeaker. Everyone gets a headphone. You go in and plug it in, you test for it, and then the conversation would start. So I'm just giving you an overview of what it is. So the first conversation is between two people, okay? And it is a very generic, everyday scenario, okay? For example, someone is trying to find a place to stay. They're calling an accommodation agency to check if they have any apartments available. Okay. Second one would be a monologue. But again, this is an everyday social context. So maybe it is a tour of the local facilities, right? You've enrolled for a program, say a sports facility, and then you're getting a tour of what the sports facility is like, what are things you can access, what time you could access them. Okay, so something of that sort. And section one and two are from social context, from an everyday, day-to-day scenario. For section three and four, the context changes. So here again, it's a conversation, but the number of people might increase, okay? Maximum up to four, never more than that. And since it's an academic context, you might hear a university tutor talking to a student or students about their assignment or helping them with the research or planning something. Okay, so that kind of a thing coming into scene. And the fourth one is a monologue on an academic subject. So something we've done all our life. We've listened to lectures throughout our life. And that is what part four is. Okay. So this is the format of the paper. And each section would have 10 questions. Okay. So that makes a total of 40. Now it's not like they'll start the audio and it'll keep on playing and you'll have to kind of just flip through paper and you're like kind of lost everything. No, it's not that. So the audio is very well timed, very well paced. When it starts, it will very clearly tell you that, before the section starts, there is some time to see the questions. Okay, so it'll say, before you start there, please have a look at question number 1 to 6. So you can have a look. You can, then the audio starts. You fill in the answers. If it's paper-based, you'll just scribble it on the paper. If it's computer-based, you can just type it there. It's right in front of you, right? And then it would say, okay, before we move to the next set, you have some time to listen, to look at question number 7 to 10. So there are pauses in between. And then when you're done with the first part, it would say, okay, before we move to part 2, you have some time to check your answer. So that's where, again, you can look at your scribbling or you can just look at the screen and make sure you've typed in the correct answer. Okay. And these are the types of questions you'd be facing. So when I say multiple choice, very simple, right? Just choose A, B, or C. Matching again. So especially like for computer delivered who are like not very sure what it would be like, it's pretty simple. You're just labeling or you're typing in short answers. When I say short answers, very, very short answers, I've never seen any answer longer than 3 word and or a number. Okay. So yeah, we learned that. And yeah, each, as I said, type of section has a particular skill gauge, and pertaining to that, we have different types of questions. So just to give you an example, when I said, like, the second part would be a tour of a facility. Now, since it's a tour, we are looking at your ability to understand a map or a diagram, follow directions, and then there are similar questions associated. So very, very scientifically designed. Okay. What do you need to bear in mind? The first thing you need to remember is YOLO. What is YOLO? You need to remember YOLO. You only live once. Yeah, you only live once, and yes, you only listen once. Okay. So the audio would play only once. You cannot stop it. You cannot rewind and go back. You cannot fast forward it, nothing. You don't have any controls for the audio. So you need to be mindful. High level of concentration is required. As I said, even though it's at a stretch you cannot stop, there are breaks in between. So that makes your life easy, even within the part, right? So it's not like part one would go on continuously, as I gave an example. So maybe question number 1 to 5. Then there's again a pause of 30 seconds, which will give you time to check your answers and look at the next set of questions. What you need to bear in mind is reading the instructions carefully. Since there are different kinds of questions, some might require you to just choose ABC, some might require you to write some words as answer, but how many words? Is it only 1 word? Is it 2 words? Okay, so be mindful of that. We'll have a look at that. And when you get these beautiful pauses of 30 seconds, use them very wisely. Okay, so mark the keywords, understand what the question is, trying to say. Are there any symbols or other things that would help you gauge the answer? For example, if we're looking at a map and we're looking at measurements, right? How long is the swimming pool? So is the answer in meter or is it in feet? Be mindful of that. Okay, so those tiny things. Or if you're asking about timings, is it AM? Is it PM? So those are things we'll be looking at before the audit starts. Okay. And it's always possible to predict answers. As I said, especially part 1 and 2, since they are from a social context, everyday life, right? We can always predict that what would be the probable answer. So make use of your sixth sense, your instincts, and try to predict the possible answers. Okay. So, for example, I said you need to understand the instruction, right? And this is an example of that. What is the word limit here? So I can write no more than 1 word and or a number. Okay, that's my limit. Now I'll play an audio and I want you to listen and then choose the correct answer. Ready? I hope the screen is clear. You can see the instructions. I want you to answer in no more than 1 word and or a number. So let's listen.
Recording 12. Hi, I'm interested in buying a ticket for the Small Business Expo next week, but I'm not sure it will be useful for me.
Well, this year we wanted to focus on computer skills. So, as well as representatives from 400 small businesses, we've invited over 250 specialists in that area.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Okay. What should my answer be? Okay, I can see answers pouring in, but let me show you the possible answers. Now, all you need to do is please choose the correct answer, or I would say options from this. So now which ones are correct? Everyone says last one. Okay. Why can't I use the second one? What's wrong with the second one? Arun says it. Yeah. So the word limit is no more than one word and or a number. So this word and means I can use a number and a word. And what kind of experts are coming there, by the way? They're computer experts, right? So I need to use the word computer as well. So if I had to go, I would choose the second one and not the last one. The correct way to answer would be the second one. Okay. 250 computer experts. Or I could use the second last one. Okay. The last but second. TWOHUNDRED and FIFTY. So this is still 250. Okay. I could use the numeric symbols for the number, or I can write it this way. Having said, I would still prefer the second one. Why? Because I'm bound to make mistakes when I'm trying to write longer answers, right? So stick to writing numbers as numbers. Okay. So that was one hint. And the second is being
Neha,
aware of.
sorry,
sorry.
just related to this, when you were, explaining, so one question came that the question says not more than one word. So how we can write 250 in
That's still a
words?
number, right? Yeah, because 250 is still one word. Okay, it's a number. How do you write 22? That would be TWENTYTWO. Are they two words? It's one word. It's just that it's a very long word. Okay. If I ask when's your birthday and say it's on, like, or maybe how many sisters do you have, and you have two sisters, how would you answer me? You could either write that number 2, or you would write TWO. But if I ask how many students in the class, you're still giving me one answer, right? Okay. So yeah, that is what we need to be mindful of, what the word limit is and what it stands for. And as I again repeated that the first option, like the second one there, 250 computers is a better option. Why? Because I needn't A, waste my time writing longer answers, and B, if I try to write such long answers, I'm bound to make mistakes. So better stick to the numeric form. Okay, now coming to the next part, that is distractors. What are distractors? So just to make life interesting and not boring, the speaker might go ahead and change his mind or correct himself, just like real life. Okay, we do that. We're talking and then like, okay, no, wait. Or at a restaurant, right? What would you like to have? So I'd like to have this, this, and this. And then you go back and no, let me change my drink. I would like to have this. So that's what they do. Okay, or they would say all the options. If it's an MCQ, and you'll be like, okay, which one did he really choose? Or he may not use the same word. And that is what we mean by paraphrasing. That is where your vocabulary is tested. Or they might use negative words, and you might be excited by just listening to the noun, and you'd be like, okay, he said sandals, and sandal is the correct option. But you missed to hear that he said don't wear sandals. Okay, so let's do one more example of see how they distract you, and let's see if we get the correct answer. I hope everyone's ready.
Recording 11. Listening section 1.
Hi, Sam. We'd better start planning the party. It's in less than 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it is. There isn't much to do, is there?
Well, we need to sort out food for a start.
Why don't we just order some pizzas?
But we always do that. Let's do something a bit different. Besides, it's pretty expensive.
What about a barbecue then? Or we could just do hot dogs?
Too much preparation involved. There are a lot coming, you know.
Sandwiches then. That's easy enough.
Sandwiches? That's a good idea. Hang on. That would be even more preparation than the barbecue. Better go back to the original idea, I suppose.
Pizzas it is then.
Now, we also need to think about music.
Can I have the answers? Lovely. Okay. And I can see a lot of pizzas in the chat box. So here comes the interesting part. When we talk about MCQs, how do we write the answer? Do we write the word? Should I write pizza, sandwiches, or should I write ABC? Okay, now you're correcting. Great. Okay, so be mindful of the way you answer. You got the answer correct. Yes, it is pizza, but the way you write it would be just the letter A and not P-I-Z-Z-A. Okay. So that gives you a taste of the test.
Recording
Doable, right? It's not that difficult. But we, being humans, tend to make mistakes. So some common mistakes that students end up doing and not getting a high score that they could have got are here. First is listening to the audio blindly. So you don't read the questions, you don't follow the instructions. You're just kind of, waiting for the audio to play and think you'll scribble it down. Wrong idea. Okay, that wouldn't help. So as the instruction says, you have some time to look at question 1 to 5. Please do that. If the question says you have some time to check your answers, please check your answer and not go about transferring the answer, because you will get a time to transfer the answer. Okay, so follow it. Avoiding the use of prediction skills, as I said, go with your sixth sense. And grammar rules. Okay, so if I'm doing a fill in the gap exercise and I see the written right before that gap, what's my prediction? Most probably it's a noun, right? Because the article the usually precedes a noun, or maybe an adjective, but I'm in the safe zone, either adjective or noun. Losing concentration, yeah. So if you get distracted, not by the distractors, but by something else happening in front of you or outside the hall, you might end up losing the track. Okay, not understanding distractors, we saw that. Ignoring instructions, what happened with pizzas, and then making spelling and grammatical mistakes. So yes, this is important. I gave you a hint of what grammar would mean. Similarly, you need to memorize spellings, at least basic spellings for everyday scenarios, right? Because there is no way to, even in computer delivered, you wouldn't be getting that blue line or green line that we get in a Word doc. So make sure you're writing your spellings correctly. And please don't leave any answers blank. Make sure you use your sixth sense and guesswork, because there are no negative marks in IELTS. Okay, that's the beauty. So even if it's wrong, you won't be penalized, but maybe it's right. It's your lucky day and you get that one. Okay, so that is all about listening. Little more in terms of study material. You can take a screenshot or it will be shared with you. Do you have any other questions pertaining to listening? Aman, anything else in the chat box which I haven't answered pertaining to listening?
Yes, there was a question where the candidate was asking about plural, a most common question, I think. If the answer is boy and someone writes boys, so
Right.
how will it impact?
So as I said, grammatically correct, since I don't have the question in front of me. But if the blank is, there was a dash. Now, a is my hint, because a is an article we use for single objects, right? So the answer has to be singular. So that's where I take my cue. I follow the grammar. Okay.
Well, for now, I guess the questions are not related to this part.
Okay.
Rest I'm trying to
So
answer.
we'll take it
There
towards
is a
the
question
end.
related to writing. I guess we'll take when we'll
Yeah,
start.
we'll take up writing. Yeah, in a
Right.
bit.
Done.
Okay. So
Thank
we'll
you.
take up writing when it comes. Thank you. Okay, jumping to the next one, reading. Uh, pretty simple layout, 60 minutes, 3 sections, 40 questions. Okay. And reading is something, again, we've done back in school as well. So we get an unseen passage, right? And then there are questions following that unseen passage. So definitely all my answers are in that unseen passage. And I kept saying unseen, but mind you, these are all authentic texts taken from real publications, official documents on this stuff, right? In academic, it would be pertaining to academics subject, and in general training, it would be shorter passages, but the end story remains the same. You still have 60 minutes, you still have 40 questions, and each section might be divided into parts. Okay, so you end up doing almost the same amount of work. It's just the topics might not be the same. That's the difference. Having said that, the types of questions remain the same. Again, you're looking at the same kind of questions that we saw for listening, with some addition of, like, I can see true, false, not given, there's matching, but matching features was there in listening as well, right? So more or less the same kinds of question, but in a way it's easier because you cannot stop the audio, but you can always flip your paper, right? Or even if you're doing a computer-based screen, you can, scroll the screen, the text up and down, and check where the answer is. Okay. And just like any other skill, reading can be improved. So for those of you who are first timers, for those of you who are planning to take the test, let's start working on this skill. If you don't read already as a daily habit, start doing it. You can start reading newspapers, magazines, journals. If you find them boring, go for fiction. That is completely okay, as long as you're getting into the practice of reading, and gradually your skills will improve, right? So when we talk of reading and we talk of skills, now there are different kind of types of reading that we do. I just mentioned, for those of you who have a hobby called reading, you are doing for leisure, right? You're doing it for your entertainment. We all read in school anyways, and that was more for memorization, right? So whatever textbooks we had, whatever chapters we had, we made sure that we read it, we memorized it, so that we could reproduce that entire thing on the day of the exam. Okay. But in IELTS, we have no syllabus, right? The passage is unseen, unknown. You've never seen it before. So what do we do? So new sets of skills would come in. They're known as, like, I'm sure you've heard of this skimming and scanning. They're so popular. Anyone who says IELTS and then they say reading, the first thing you'll hear is skimming and scanning. Agreed? But apart from that, we also need something called deep reading or intensive reading. Okay, that is reading for details, and extensive reading, as I said, which you need to start not just for reading, but for your speaking and your writing modules as well, because that is A, for enjoyment, and B, for increasing our understanding of the language. So having said that, what do we understand by skimming? What do we understand by scanning? And how do we use it? So skimming is nothing but reading for the gist, like quickly going through the details and understanding what the basic idea is, right? So if I was talking about the two conversations that I presented, the first one, the gist of the first conversation was that my friend had a really bad vacation, a bad, horrible trip. That was the gist. But if I ask for a particular detail as to, which was that resort and I'll never book it, now you're looking for a particular detail. That was a conversation. Here you have a text. So scanning for a detail, which is very, very specific. That's scanning. So having said that, how do we approach our IELTS questions? Do we Skim first? Do we scan first? Or should I do a bit of detailed reading with the passage and then try to answer the question? What should be my approach? Can I have some options in the chat box? What should I start with? Should I start with skimming? Should I start with scanning? Or should I do a bit of detailed reading with the passage so that I kind of, get an idea of what this is? Okay, interesting. Wow, there's a mix of answers coming in. Everyone has a different approach. And to be honest, yes, everyone can have a different approach because each one reads differently. But talking of skills and, certain practices that would be helpful in IELTS, I want you to focus on the screen now because coming up is a picture. Okay, you'll see an image. There's certain things in the image. I want you to observe the image and that image would disappear in a few seconds. Okay, so it's not going to be there in front of you for very long. I want you to concentrate, have a look at the image, and then I'll tell you what to do. So you can send the answers in the chat box. What is the answer? I'll ask the questions after you have a look at the image. Okay, ready? Here it comes. Okay. Now, I want you to go to the chat box and type in all the things you saw from your memory. Whatever you remember, whatever you saw. I know it was a very cluttered room. So as many as you can, maybe 5, 6, 4, I don't know how many things you saw. Just send in the list. Okay, I can see descriptions also. It was very colorful. Okay. Wow. Lovely. Great. Awesome. Now, my question to you is, when was the picture clicked? Can I have an answer to that? When was the picture clicked? Okay, not many answers for that. Some of you got it. Some of you did. Okay. Which animal did you see? Cable says no idea. No, the answer is there, Cable. We'll have a look. Which animal did you see? Pig, cat, horse, elephant. Oh my God, elephant in the room. Monkey. Okay. So pig was not an animal. It was like the piggy bank, right? It was more of a toy. I wouldn't call it an animal. No, there is, Satvinder, there is an animal. The species of animal, right? Would fall in the species of animals. Parrot? Okay. MJ says no clue. Okay, so see, this is what happens with reading. Okay, as I said, our mind throughout our years of education is trained to memorize. Okay, that's what we did right from grade 1 to grade 12. We memorize things. Even in college, we do that. And our brain is trained in that way so that once you saw the image, you tried to memorize everything. And you had no clue what the question would be, right? So when I asked the question, some of you were lost, like no idea what is she talking about. But had I asked this question in the beginning, so if you knew the question before looking at the image, now that you know it, when I say, when was the picture clicked? What am I looking for? What should you tell your brain to look for? A clock, right? A clock, a watch, maybe even a calendar, because when could even be a date, right? It was clicked on the 4th of July. So maybe I'm looking for a calendar, right? So now that you know what you're looking for, Let's have a look at the image again. Now, can you tell me when it was clicked? For those of you who said no clue, I don't know. Did we get the answer? Here, at the bottom corner, I can see two clocks. One is a digital one looks like the old-fashioned one, and both read 3. So I can be sure it is 3 o'clock. Again, I'm not sure if it's AM or PM, but at least it's 3 o'clock. And what about the animal? Did you see this green thing at the back wall? Yeah, that's the animal. Lovely. Okay, so that was just a kind of real-time demonstration of how skimming, scanning work and what should we do. So how would you improve? Yes, time management comes into picture. There are 3 sections. You're supposed to answer 40 questions. You need to be fast, but it's not impossible because the number of minutes is more compared to the number of questions. Do not waste your time reading the passage. Don't try to memorize the passage or understand in detail. Simply break your time into, I would say, chunks of 15, 15, and 15. Okay, 15 minutes, first section done, jump to the next one. So it's fair enough, right? You have around 13 questions, 15 minutes, decent enough time. And then that leaves you with extra time towards the end to come back and attempt those questions that you couldn't finish. Okay. Discern the difficulty level. So usually it's the first one is easier, followed by the second one becoming moderate, and third one could be tougher in terms of content or the way the questions are asked. So develop skill for each type of question. Each set of questions requires a different skill set. Make sure you understand what you need to do. Some might require more of skimming, some might require more of reading in detail. Okay. For example, fill in the gap exercises would be more of skimming and scanning, but true, false, not given would require detailed reading. Okay, so that was what I'm trying to say here. Develop vocabulary goes without saying. Speed reading, as I said, if you've not already started reading, make sure you're doing it every day and read as try to read phrases and sentences rather than one word at a time. That is what we mean by speed reading. Always read the question first. We just saw a demonstration. So read the questions, you know what you're looking for, and then jump into the text, trying to skim and scan and find the location and pick up the correct answer. Okay, so we know what skimming is. We know what scanning is. We just did that. Concentrate at sentence level. So once you've done with skimming and scanning, you've reached the location of that particular, where you feel the answer would be, that is where the concentration level needs to go up and detailed reading, the third kind of reading, kicks in. Please avoid reading aloud in your exam. Okay, don't read it with your lips, read it in your mind. And the third one, please complete the 2 letters over here. What should they be? There are 2 blanks. Could you fill in the 2 blanks? Yeah, it's practice, practice, and practice. There is no shortcut to anything in life. Okay, they claim Maggie is ready in 2 minutes, but we know it's never ready in 2 minutes. So there is no shortcut. Okay. So yes, when you start practicing, make sure you know the strategies, focus on accuracy, and then start working towards your speed. That's my final. Patience, Kedar, okay, but I would say more of practice. Patience is something you have to have throughout your journey. Okay, so that's all about reading. Do you have any questions for me? Or have I answered all your questions? All good? Okay, so let's jump into writing. So writing is an hour-long test. And then you would be basically given 2 tasks to complete. Be it academic, be it general, the kind of tasks are a bit different. We'll have a look. And it says 60 minutes. Ideally, so it's not like it's 20 minutes, someone would come and snatch away your paper, but it's ideally suggested that you divide your time into 20 and 40. Spend 20 minutes on the first task. Now, the first task is usually a report writing in the academic version, right? It's a report writing, so you would be given an infographic, a bar chart, pie chart, a diagram, some sort of thing, and you need to write at least 150 words. And the second task would be an essay. And there are different kinds of essay we'll have. Now, for the general training, so this is what I mean by infographic. I'm sure you've seen them at some point or the other in your lives. So it could be one of these, or it could be a combination. So maybe, two pie charts with a table, something of that sort. Okay, you need to understand this and then see what you write. So basically a report, limit being 150 words. Okay, the lower limit. And for those of you who are taking up the general training, your task one is very simple, not a report. It's a letter, and any kind of letter. It could be a personal letter or a semi-formal one or a formal one. And the second task again is the same. You need to write an essay. And irrespective of which task you're writing or what you're doing. Okay, so by letter, this is what I mean. Since we had an example of report, this is a sample letter. So you live in a room in a college, which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and you find it very difficult to work. So you're supposed to write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college and include these points. So what do you need? Whatever you are supposed to write, there's a very clear instruction. The things you need to include, that is also very clearly specified. So that's why it's pretty easy. And again, I believe letter writing is something we've done right from what? I think grade 3 or 4, we started writing letters, right? So something we've already done in our lives. But the grading parameter, as I said, so it's not how our school teachers checked it. There are very clear guidelines as to what the examiner wants from you. And all of these 4 parameters have equal weightage. So the first one is grammatical range and accuracy. Next is lexical resource, so nothing but a fancy name for vocabulary. Then there is task achievement. So you were given a task, were you able to achieve it or not? And there is coherence and cohesion. Fancy terms, let's see what they mean exactly. So when I talk of task response or task achievement, so task response is a term you would come when you're looking at writing task 2, and achievement when you're doing task 1. Okay, but anyways, what they mean. So basically, they are trying to see the candidate's ability to answer the question properly. Were you able to do it in a proper way? Were you able to write clearly and frame a well-developed answer? Okay, taking into consideration all the points. If it's a report, so did you have a very clear overview? Were you able to bring in the details? And were those facts and figures accurate? Okay, so that is what task achievement would mean. Coherence and cohesion. So coherence is nothing but the logical flow of your ideas. So when you're presenting your ideas, is there a logical flow to it? Does it seem well organized? That is what coherence is. And cohesion, remember I said your linkers. Okay, so do you use enough linking words so that I understand what the relation is? And do you use them correctly? And linking words are nothing but our conjunctions, our discourse markers. Okay, so those are the things that would be graded for this particular parameter. Then there is lexical resource. So definitely we need to see that we have a good vocabulary, and not just good, we know how to use those words appropriately and aptly. Also use of collocation, idiomatic language. So that is what is important. Not idioms, idiomatic language. Okay. And then grammatical range and accuracy. So that's pretty simple. We know what accurate grammar is, are using singular and plurals correctly, subject verb agreement. Are you using your punctuations in correct places? So that is accuracy. And range would be, are you making only simple sentences? If so, you might end up at a low band score, like around 5. But if we try to throw in like, complex sentences, compound sentences, if conditionals. So that would help us show a range of grammatical tools. Okay. So that is what is being judged. Having said that, this doesn't say handwriting, but of course, your handwriting needs to be legible. If the examiner is not able to read and understand, there's no way he'll be able to give you marks. Okay. So no extra marks for Apsara Dar, but your writing should be legible. Okay. So what should you keep in mind? The word limit says 150, right? So definitely you cannot write below 150. If you write 140, 145, you'll be penalized. So definitely you have to write above 150, but I don't expect you to sit on the day of your exam and count 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you're practicing, make sure you have a habit of writing at least 20 to 30 words more, right? So if it's a 150 word report, I would say 170 to 180 words is a good idea. Now don't keep on writing and writing and writing and make it 200 or 220 words long, because then you'd end up A, wasting a lot of time, and B, most probably, since you're writing so much, you're bringing in irrelevant things which are not required. Okay, you're not answering the question to the point and you're talking about random things. So it's not a good idea to go overboard also, not like way overboard. So a good idea, 20 to 30 words exceeding, stick to that. Now, talking about task one, so this is specifically academic. You need to paraphrase the question. Don't repeat the question as it is. Don't copy paste it. Paraphrase the question. Highlight the main trends and differences. So that's what the overview means. And then make sure you're using the appropriate tense, because each graph will have more often than not a date associated, right? Is it from the past? Is it from the future? So while reporting, make sure you're taking that into consideration. Also, make sure to use data and figures, right? If it's percentage, it's some kind of numbers. So just don't write it increased or, it fell from this to this. You need to give me the data. You need to give me the number, and that needs to be accurate. Write in paragraphs, not in bullet points. No bullet points, proper paragraphs. And to make it clearly legible, make sure you're leaving at least some space. So a good idea to leave a line between two paragraphs. And for vocabulary, apart from the good, nice words, throw in a bit of adjectives. So if that was an increase, what kind of an increase? It was a sharp increase. Okay. So those are the adjectives or even adverbs that will help you increase your score. So don't be mechanical. Okay. What you should not do, obviously, not writing below or way too much, spending more time than required. So please do not exceed 20 minutes. You can even do it in 15, to be honest. If it's a letter or a very simple graph, I believe you can still do it in 15 minutes as well. Please do not write in bullet points. Okay, don't be too mechanical. Do not miss out any of the main trends. Don't describe the diagram, describe the information. So what do I mean by that? Say you see a line graph and there are 3 different colored lines talking about the population trend of 3 different countries, right? So one could be a red line, one could be a green one, and one could be blue. Please don't describe the diagram saying, I can see a line graph. There is the red line is going up, green line is coming down. No, please don't do that. Okay, don't describe the diagram. Describe what you see there, what that means. And never ever say why. What do I mean by that? Don't try to come to a conclusion on your own that, okay, I can see that, that line is going up. That means the fuel prices have increased. So that would mean people are purchasing less of cars. No, please don't try to interpret. Don't try to bring in your logic or give a why to the trend that you see. Simply look at the data and present it. Okay, so those are the tips for writing task 1. Do you have any questions before I go to writing task 2?
Neha, there are a few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
If you can address.
Okay.
One is that candidate is asking that when to switch paras, how many sentences per paragraphs do you recommend?
Okay,
And
interesting.
I'll
So,
take another question alongside if you
sure,
can answer both.
sure.
Uh, on the similar grounds, someone is asking between intro and overview, gap should be given or not.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, sure. So ideally, the word paragraph indicates a set of sentences which come together and denote a single idea, right? That's what a paragraph means. So there is no standard rule saying that this many number of sentences make a paragraph. Okay, so forget how many lines I need to write. It's about the content. So the first paragraph always needs to be an introduction. An introduction is nothing but what the graph is talking about, right? As I said, don't copy paste what the graph is talking about, paraphrase. What is paraphrase? Using synonyms, or it could even be changing the word form. That is paraphrasing. So how you do it, how many words you require would be an individual skill as to how good you are with paraphrasing. But that's your first paragraph, introduction, what the question says, okay, written in your own words. So obviously it's not a very long paragraph. It could be one or even two sentences long, and that's about. Again, I cannot comment on the number of sentences. Why? Because I could make a complex sentence and complete it in one sentence. You could make two different sentences. Fair enough. Okay. Secondly, you would have your overview. So overview, as I showed in the previous slide, the main trends, the main changes. Okay. Overall, what you can see, that is your overview. Again, pretty short. So these two wouldn't be very long. And how do I distinguish that you've done the overview, you've done the introduction and you've come to the overview? Leave a line in between, right? That's neat writing, basically something we learned in school, right? So leave some space between two paragraphs. So that's why I suggest leave a line. And then come to the third paragraph. This is where you go into your details. So it could be talking about, the things that increased. That maybe I would take in body para 1, and in body para 2 I would take the things that saw a decline. So just a way of saying how I would divide my paragraphs. And here I'm talking about what exactly happened, right? What were the changes in number, in percentage? So obviously I'm writing more, and these would be bigger paragraphs compared to the first. So there is no set formula of how many words, how many lines. End goal is definitely more than 150, but it's not just the numbers that count, it's how you present it. That is even more important. I hope I've answered the questions.
There is one more question. It says difference between active and passive voice and which one is better, And
Oh, wow.
again, if the articles will be counted in the word limit.
Yes, yes. So articles are genuine, legit words. They are counted. Okay. And having them and not putting them in the correct place would also cost you in terms of marks. So if I require a the, you need to put in the if the sentence requires the. Okay. If you skip it, you would end up losing marks for your grammatical accuracy. Okay. And talking of active and passive, it's like an entire grammar chapter, which I'm afraid we don't have the time to deal with. And you cannot say this is better than this, because certain things when I need to convey, I will have to use active, and there would be certain ideas which need to be conveyed in passive. So that's a prudence we develop when we learn what active and passive mean. So yes, there is a myth in the market which says that use only passive if you want to get high scores. But if I use only passive, the examiner has given me a very clear parameter saying grammatical range and accuracy. So if I write only passive, is that called a range? The examiner comes to a conclusion that this person knows nothing except for passive sentences, and I lose my range score. Okay. So no, that's not correct. But yes, at times passive is considered more formal. As I said, it would depend on the situation. So if the graph is talking about population, okay, and if I need to say that the population increased like by this much, say 3 billion, the world population increased by 3 billion, what would I say? Can I make this into passive? So from 2005 to 2024, the world population increased by 3 billion. This is active and there is no way I could turn this to passive. Okay, so that was just one example.
Okay.
Okay.
Another question is like this candidate has, participant has put it many times. Like if the answer, the writing part is attempted in all camps, how will it impact the marking? Can it
Of
be
course
done?
it will.
All
A,
caps.
writing in all caps is equal to shouting, okay, in general terms. And next, we spoke about grammar, right? And grammar is also about the correct use of capital letters and how you write it. So capitals are used only one, we are starting a sentence. It starts with a capital letter. And if I'm talking about a proper noun, those are the only two places I use capitals, right? And maybe if I use the pronoun I, that's about it. So if I use everything in capital, obviously I don't know my grammar. Okay. So can we move to writing task 2?
Yeah, I think we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So again, ideally spend 40 minutes. No one's come to snatch your paper, but just ideally spend 40 minutes because you have 250 words to write. And what is this task trying to test? Okay. So maybe it wants to see if you can provide general factual information. And what kind of question are we looking at? So maybe you're looking at what are the advantages and disadvantages of a particular thing, right? You're giving factual information over there. Or it could be, you're given a problem and then you need to present a solution, popularly known as problem solution question. Or maybe you're given a point of view for discussion and then you need to justify that opinion. Okay, discuss both views and give your opinion as well. Or you could be given an idea and then you might be expected to challenge it. So do you agree or disagree? But definitely you need to provide some evidence for that argument. Okay, so those were the question types, popularly known colloquial names, and this is what they really mean. The same parameters, as I mentioned, it becomes task response. So there are certain changes. If you've seen the band descriptor, awesome. If you haven't, go check it out. You'll find that again on the IDP website, and please follow it. Okay, so when you're writing, just make sure you have things in place. So how do I go about improving my writing? Now, writing is a task which is a productive skill. Okay, so when I spoke of the 4 skills, we had receptive skills, which is listening and reading. We are receiving the language, but in writing and speaking, we're supposed to produce the language, and that becomes challenging. So for any kind of production, like any product you see around you, you need enough raw material, right? Only then you can produce it. So same applies to writing. If you want to produce a good piece of writing, a very well written essay, you need to have a lot of raw material, that is content in your head in terms of vocabulary, grammar, and definitely ideas. And hence start reading. Okay. But don't read passively. Every time you read something, see what are the different kind of sentences that you can see, look, pick the grammar. Okay. How did they work along this? Learn about conjunctions and linking words. So there are different kinds of conjunctions, there are different kinds of linking words, how they play and how they change the way you present your ideas. See what the different topics are, themes for the IELTS exam. So this is a very generic, broad perspective of the topics you might come across: education, technology, environment. Very generic. And then they might have details or subtopics as well. So make sure you're well read and aware of these topics, and then create your idea bank and vocabulary bank. Okay, so list out words. So maybe I'm talking about education. but education is a very vast field. So maybe there could be a question between online education or role of technology in education, or it could be, science versus arts, or it could be co-educational system versus single sex schools. Okay, so think of all those topics, list out the synonyms, the paraphrases, and make sure you know the collocations as well, what goes with each kind of word. So all this is practice that needs to go before you are actually writing an essay. And then once you start writing, think of how long you will spend on the task. So 40 minutes. Do I spend the entire 40 minutes writing? Of course not. I'll spend around, a good 7 to 10 minutes planning as to what I want to write. What would be my stand? If it is agree or disagree, do I think I agree with this? How do I have enough points to agree with it? Okay. Can I think of apt examples? So that is the first 10 minutes where you plan your essay. Then you do the actual writing task, maybe for around 25 minutes. And again, the last 5 minutes go to proofreading. Did you write it correctly? Were you able, like, once you read it, does it make sense to you? Are there any spelling mistakes? Did you miss out a comma? Okay, so that is how you should actually spend your entire 40 minutes. How many words should you write? Again, a good idea is to go overboard by 20 to 30 words, but not more. How formal should your writing be? Definitely it should be formal, because essay writing is a formal piece of writing. Okay. You are asked for opinions. Yes. You can give your examples. You can use the word I, saying I believe or I agree, but the piece is still formal. Okay. How do you organize it? So how many paragraphs you need to? Sometimes we have 2 body paragraphs. At times you might opt for 3 body paragraphs. So how would you organize your essay? What kind of thoughts would you put into each paragraph? Make sure you understand what is being exactly asked. Okay, not something very generic. If they're talking about pollution, but it is specifically pertaining to air pollution, don't end up writing something related to water pollution. Okay, so be very clear about that and see what can be included and what cannot be or should not be included pertaining to the topic. And do you need to give examples? Of course, you need to give examples. The writing task very clearly says it, that give examples, support your answer. So give reasons for your answer and examples from your experience or knowledge. And since the word comes in, give answers or give examples from your experience. And if it's my experience, I can definitely use the word I, but I'll not go very, very personal with the example. What do I mean by that? So if I'm talking about advantages and disadvantages of a certain thing, right? Say technology or the way technology has entered into our lives. And if I say that I feel technology is a boon because ever since I bought a dishwasher, my life has become very easy. I know that is a legit example, but here I was very, very centered around I, me, and myself. It is not a global example. I mean, it might not be true for you. You might find it really as a hassle, or rather, let us say it's not a global example. So in this example, I'll not say I. Okay. So it's not like I cannot use personal examples. It's okay, but your personal example should not be very, very personal and it holds true only to you. So just be mindful of that. Okay. So that was all about writing task 2. Do we have any specific questions pertaining to this writing task 2? Is it okay to repeat words in paraphrasing? Some words, like you cannot paraphrase or you cannot paraphrase the prepositions, right? But the entire purpose of paraphrasing is that you're not repeating the words. That's what paraphrasing means. In writing task 2, are we assist on knowledge? No, you're not assist on knowledge, Ashwarya. It's not that, oh wow, she gave such a knowledgeable answer. Okay, right from Wikipedia. No, that's not what they are judging. It could be a very basic. So, talking about how to combat pollution, you can give a very simple solution as grow more trees. Okay, that's very generic. Everyone knows it. But how you delivered the idea, what kind of language you use, what kind of sentence construction, did you elaborate it? That is what the exam is looking for. Writing more. Yes. So you could stick to the American spelling or you could use the British version, but make sure you stick to one. Don't give both the variations in the same essay. Okay, stick to one. Bindu, what would true examples mean? I'm not very sure what that means. Do not make up fake research, definitely. So according to a research conducted by NASA, 20 people said, come on. Okay, don't make up fake researches. No, Mohammed Anas, you'll not, no one will come and say you have 1 hour, this is 20 minutes, 40 minutes are done. No one will tell that to you. As I said, you need to be mindful and divide your time appropriately. And as I said, you can do your letter writing in 15 minutes also. It's completely fine. If you feel it's a very simple letter, you practice it, you're very confident, but make sure, yeah, the planning, writing and proofreading happen. Okay. So I think I've answered most of the questions. If there are more, we'll take it towards the end and quickly finishing the last section, which is, speaking. Okay. As I said, it's a one-on-one interview. It's not something happening on a group. One person, one interviewer, 14 minutes is the maximum time. Okay. So not even 15 minutes, a very quick interview happening in 3 parts. Okay. And someone asked the question, is it the same day? It could be the same day, but not the same time, not the same setting. So could be same day, could be any time in a week preceding or following your test. Now, again, there are 4 parameters here, but they slightly change. So we are aware of grammar, we are aware of lexical resource, which is the vocabulary. Okay, these 2 are the same. What changes is fluency and coherence. So coherence, again, we saw the logical flow, right? It has to be there. Fluency is basically your ability to speak at a length without taking unnecessary pause. Okay. And at a decent rate of speed. So not very fast, not very slow, not chopping, breaking, chunking, going back. All that is what we understand by fluency. And then there is pronunciation. And someone just asked about the spelling of American spellings and, British spellings. And similarly, pronunciation would change when you're looking at a certain set of accents, right? So the examiner does not require you to have an accent. We are Indians, we have a, like even Nepal, I know someone's challenging there, but we have a very neutral accent, okay? So stick to it. It's completely fine to talk in your own accent. So you needn't say, like if dancing is your hobby, it's completely okay to say, I love to dance. You don't have to say, I love to dance. You don't have to do that, okay? Unless it's your natural accent and that's the way you speak and you're confident you'll be speaking in the same accent throughout your test, go for it. But you don't have to change your accent, but make sure you're pronouncing the words clearly. What do I mean by pronouncing the words clearly? Now, India being a vast country, we all tend to come from different regions which have their own touch for the English language. Okay, so it would be like, okay, some regions have a problem of were and bur, right? Especially it was the eastern side, Bihar, Bengal, that region. They tend up saying bur instead of were. Dekh rahe ho Binod. It's not a Vinod, Binod. Okay, or it could be sir and sha. So she is a good girl. She is a good girl. Now you meant to say she, but you happen to say C, which is mispronunciation. So that is what this parameter refers to. Okay, not the accent, no fake accents, but the correct pronunciation is very important. Okay, so we've already discussed that. And what happens in the test. Okay. So the first round, just like any other round of any other interview, would be an introduction round, 4 to 5 minutes going in, wherein they would ask you questions related to you, right? Your life, your family, work, studies, something very general. So this is kind of a warm-up round for you. Okay. Uh, this is where the questions are very basic. And the idea is to create a good impression on the exam, right? With your level of English. So what should you keep in mind? Definitely, you need to appear confident, both in terms of your dressing, the way you look, and the way you feel. Okay. And present yourself as you would for any formal situation. Okay. That's the idea. Also, remember, you're not talking to a machine. The person sitting in front of you is human, is not AI. So if you make a mistake, you can go back and correct yourself. Like, uh, I have two sisters. Okay. So if you said had, you can say, sorry, I have two sisters. You can correct yourself. The examiner, being a human, would understand this. Okay. If you can't remember a word, yeah, it's okay. Paraphrase, explain what you're trying to say. Again, that's acceptable as long as you don't stop and you don't use a word which is not from English. So paraphrase. Okay. Talk about similar topics. Don't digress a lot. Yes, there is no task achievement in speaking. So it's not that you have to talk only and only about this. And most things are around, like, the subject, but be on similar, like, ground. Don't digress a lot. Don't go off to a different topic altogether. And give full answers. Okay. Don't give very short answers like, do you like cooking? Yes. Okay. That's not a big enough answer, long enough answer. So give full answers that, yes, I love cooking because, and then give some explanation or some additional information for that. Okay. What you shouldn't do for sure is don't go with pre-prepared, memorized answers that you saw somewhere. You thought, wow, such a beautiful answer. Let me memorize and make it my own. The examiner would come to know. Okay. There's a difference in our speech when we are trying to talk from our own knowledge and trying to frame answers, and rather than memorizing, it's evident in your speech, and the examiners are qualified enough to catch that. Okay. No short answers. That's what I already said. And please don't ask questions to the examiner. You can ask him to repeat the question. You can ask him to be a bit louder, but don't ask questions. Okay. Where are you from? That's not what you're supposed to do. Okay. Then we go to the long term, which is basically known as cue card in the colloquial terms, right? So this is what your cue card would look like. You'll be given a topic. You'd be given a rough sheet of paper, a pencil to make notes, and 1 minute of time to make those notes. And once you're done with your notes, you're supposed to talk about this topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. If the examiner got the content, he might ask you to stop before 2 minutes. Completely fine. But make sure your content is at least 2 minutes long. And sometimes you might have rounding of questions. So you just finished talking about it. They might ask you like something pertaining to the cue card that you just spoke about. And then you move to the third part, which is again 4 to 5 minutes long. It's a two-way discussion. And this is kind of a further conversation on what you just spoke in your cue card. So basically a connected topic, right? So the previous slide said like something that is very important to you. Okay. You value it. So now this part is talking about, how the values have changed, or what gives status to people. It's kind of on the same lines, but the idea here is to have more of a discussion. So don't take this as grilling. Some students do get nervous and feel that, oh my God, he's asking me so many questions. Or, if I say something, why is he asking why? Or why is he asking me to elaborate? This is a discussion round. The examiner wants to see how fluent you are in expressing your opinions, your ideas, or talking about some abstract issues. So Feel free to express your opinion. He's not interested in your opinion, remember? The idea is to see if you can present your opinion. And you might struggle with these things like, finding the relevant vocabulary. That's why I said get well read, see the current affairs, what's happening, so that you know what words to use. Or there's some issues you might not be very well versed with. Okay, make sure that you learn about them, at least have some opinion. So don't go completely blank into the exam hall. Okay, and tenses, yes. So more often than not, uh, rather than major errors, the tiny slips of tenses and even subject verb agreement, this is what can cost a student. Okay, as I said, the examiner is not interested in your opinion. Just like in the essay, the idea itself doesn't mean that much, rather than how you present it. Okay, you can use delaying tactics if it's necessary. So what do I mean by delaying tactics? I don't want you to give a long, awkward, silent pause, but you can say, oh, that's an interesting question. And if I had to think, if I would prefer. So I kind of, gave a sentence over there, a phrase over there. This helped me buy some time. And in the meanwhile, I could think of if I want to agree or, disagree. Okay. Don't try to give your real opinion if it is too complex. Okay. So there's an idea, you feel something about it, but it's very, very complicated. You will not be able to put your ideas to word. It's okay. You don't have to get very honest about it. You can give a simpler opinion, which you feel that you can nicely iterate and support and depth. Okay. As I said, the examiner doesn't really care about your opinion. He cares about your language skills. Okay. So finally, before we wrap up, my last minute tip to you would be do not leave anything for the last minute. Okay. Plan ahead, get help if you want, and start working today. So that's it from my end. We are open for a few questions. We do have some time to take a couple of questions. So yeah, do let me know. Aman, do you have anything marked?
Yes,
aside?
Neha, actually, there's a question which says, is it mandatory to wear formals during speaking?
Okay, so see, it is a formal setting, undeniable, right? But by formals, I don't want you to go hire a tuxedo, get a tie and all. Formal would also mean a decent pant and shirt, right? So basically, decently dressed. I wouldn't go to give an exam in shorts, right? So that is what I mean by formal, but you don't have to go and buy a suit.
Does tone of speaking matter?
Of course it does, doesn't it? Even in our day-to-day lives, if I'm talking to you right now and then I become a robot and I want you to understand that it matters, right? So be natural. The way you would talk and give answers in a situation, the tone does matter.
Okay. So one more question is, I am not getting it myself. Will the sub questions be mentioned? Okay. Will the sub questions be mentioned in the cue card?
Oh, yes, there would be. So there would be, kind of bullet points, the bullet markers we see. And your job is to make sure that you cover all those 3 or 4 points that I given.
But Neha, I would like to understand, sub question means the follow-up questions, or
No, not the follow-up.
no, the follow-up questions won't be there, no?
Follow-up is if the examiner wants to know a bit more, like the rounding of questions that you see here, right? This might not be there on the cue card, but this is what the cue card would have. So describe something you own. You should say, so what you should say, I can see 3 bullet points and then explain why it is important. That is the entire cue card that you see. The rounding of question is optional. The examiner may or might not ask, depending on did you give everything to him. So this is asking, is it valuable in terms of money? Now, say I was talking about this precious item and I already said how much it costs, he might not ask me this question. Okay. Yes, Any other question?
Okay, Neha, it's already 12:40, so I think
Yes.
it's time for us to, wind it up
I know.
because the commitment was till 12:30.
True.
So I know there are many questions still unanswered, but we may take it next time. And thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Neha, again for the insightful session. Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, and all the best to everyone.
Yes, all the best.
Thank you. Take care.